Just two dudes having a conversation. You're my friend and I trust you.
How you been, man?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I think we're good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. As I say, we got levels, but
Yeah. Yeah, I turned our mics down a little bit. We were clipping a little bit last episode.
I gotcha. Corey was like yelling slow
So loud, that man.
for a homeschooler, especially.
Oh, yeah. Loud for a homeschooler.
Well, welcome back to the podcast.
What do you got on your straw there?
This
Yeah, you got a metal straw, but it's got something over it.
it's just like a rubber thing. So you don't...
Does it taste weird, though?
No taste.
I just stole one of my fiance's silicone, like rubbery straws. She got like a pack of them. And they've just been sitting in her basement forever. She has an apartment in her parents' basement. And they've just been sitting down there forever. So I finally was just like, I'm taking one of these. Because I've been wanting a straw for a long time for my smoothies. But I'm too cheap to buy some like reusable straws anymore. I've been doing that thing that like wait on it before you buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
I nearly bought probably 5 different things this week that I did not need.
Yeah.
And have not bought them.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I did the same thing. So I've been selling some of my like music gear that I'm not using and saving up for a few different things of what I kind of want on my wish list.
Yeah.
And I almost bought like probably 4 of them in the last week. But I would wait. And what we ended up doing is we bought a projector. So that way, like, we don't have a TV in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And, like, we don't really want one. But with this projector, like, it can kind of be like a special thing. Like, we put it up the other night in our bedroom, watched a movie, had popcorn.
Yeah.
And, like,
Do you have popcorn in bed?
We did.
We're going to sidebar on this topic.
Okay. But I instead of buying something strictly for me, like, I bought something that both Allie and I would enjoy. And I'm like, I still want the other stuff, but I'm glad I bought this and waited and bought this.
Yeah.
Because, like, we love watching movies, but, like, it can get expensive going to the movie theater.
Right.
And, like, it's not, like, the nicest projector. Like, it was the highest rated under $200 projector on Amazon.
Is it 1080p at least? 4K or just 1080p?
Just 1080.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And
What color wall are you projecting onto?
right now it's, like, gray.
Does that affect the picture?
Maybe a little bit. Like, I'm sure if it was white, it would be better. But
It's not enough to really notice?
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of people, I was reading online, like, recommended, like, this very specific gray paint because it's supposed to help with the contrast or something. I don't know. But
Maybe that's why they call it the silver screen.
possibly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to be up on the silver screen.
Was it you and me that had this conversation, or me and my wife, about what the silver screen meant?
Silver screen means the movie theater.
Okay.
You know? Like
Yeah.
The fabric that the movie is projected upon. That's what you thought? What did she think it meant?
I think it was her. It might have been somebody else. So take it with how we would. But
Your other wife.
My other wife. I think she thought it meant like more of like the, not like pornographic, like screen, like, you know, like film genre.
Oh,
like
those art house movies.
Yeah, maybe it was something like that.
That there's just like a ton of nudity, but it's okay because it's art.
It's art. Yes. Yes.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure it means the screen upon which the movie is projected.
That's what I always thought.
Because it'd be
tweet us in, listeners. What, Carol?
Yeah, Carol, what does silver screen mean? I'm going to say that I know 100% that it does mean that.
Yeah.
Like Lauren Bacall up on the silver screen. She's a star. I just like saying it like that. It's fun.
It's fair.
One of my favorite accents is a transatlantic accent. The accent that nobody had, but they just had in movies.
Right. Yeah. So what about popcorn in bed?
Oh, so it's a constant fight, I would say. Well, not a constant fight, but I think it might be in the future. But obviously, I have proclivities to sometimes enjoy food in bed.
Steak.
Well,
eggs.
I haven't done a steak or eggs in a very long time. Now it's mainly just light snacks.
Okay.
And then I don't leave my dishes in my bed with me anymore. I've grown. I've matured. I've matured past it. But one thing that I do eat in bed, like I'll be watching a movie and I'll have popcorn. And every time I am with Emily and eating popcorn, she always yells at me for how I eat popcorn because I'll just grab handfuls of it and just shove it in there. And then there's like kernels and little bits flying all over the place.
Stuff stuck in your beard.
I got stuff stuck in my beard. And then she's like, eat one kernel at a time.
She eats one popcorn kernel at a time?
One popcorn kernel at a time. I'm like, what are you doing?
That's not how you eat popcorn.
I know. At least I would say minimum 3.
Yeah, like a little like
like
3, 4, I guess with your thumb. 3 finger and thumb.
Yeah.
Pop
That's
it in.
what you should be doing. She goes one at a time so as not to get crumbs on herself, like when we're at the movies or something.
How long does it take to eat popcorn with her?
Probably a very long time.
My goodness.
I've never seen her finish a thing of popcorn before. But I'm just like, because popcorn is one of my favorite foods. But she constantly is telling me, you will never eat popcorn in our bed. If I come into bed and there's popcorn kernels in our bed, I will kill you. And I believe her.
Well, at least you've been warned.
Yeah. I'm probably still going to do it. And when I'm dead, you'll know who did it and why.
It was worth it. He told me so.
But yeah, I refuse to change how I eat popcorn.
No, like my favorite thing to do, and this might sound disgusting, popcorn, big old glass of chocolate milk.
Oh, heck yeah. I know where you're going.
You take your handful of popcorn, shove it in your mouth.
Put it in your cheek.
And then you take your swig of chocolate milk.
I'm not lying to you when I say I fit an entire bag of Micro Pop in my cheeks. Because it just compacts. Popcorn. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller because it's like styrofoam. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
Its molecular structure is weak. So if you compact it into your cheeks, you can fit an entire bag of Micro Pop into your mouth.
And then choke.
Well, if you just keep compacting it. And then you get a big old glass of chocolate milk and wash that sucker down.
So good.
One time I did, when my family does popcorn, and by the way, we don't have supper Sunday nights. We just do popcorn. We've always done that growing up. I think it's the best thing because you eat like a big lunch, on Sunday. And then we would normally go for ice cream, and then we wouldn't be that hungry.
Right.
For pop or for a big supper. So we just have popcorn. It'd be like the perfect thing. So we pop it from kernels though. We do it that way. I hate Micro Pop. It's only in an emergency Micro Pop. But one time I was at a friend's house, he just had Micro Pop, and I was like, well, this stuff sucks. We need to spice it up in some way. So we got chocolate syrup and just put it all over that popcorn. And then we also melted some butter and put it on there too.
Was it good?
Made me real gassy. But chocolate just in general makes me gassy.
I don't There's very few things that I like on my popcorn. Like, I like butter, but I only like butter at the movie theater.
Really? You don't just melt butter and put it on?
No. If I'm making it at home,
I guess that is healthier.
yeah, I like just the popcorn.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of salt.
What are you using as your oil?
Coconut oil.
Okay. We have like Orville Redenbacher's popping oil, but I prefer, that's what my parents use, but I prefer to use olive oil. I think that adds just a little bit of flavor. And then I'll do like olive oil and then no butter.
Oh,
Just salt.
nice.
That's the way to go, man.
I'm partial to the coconut, coconut oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It gives it its own flavor.
Do you ever put any Parmesan cheese on your popcorn?
Nope. Don't like it.
Really? Have you tried it though?
I don't like stuff on my popcorn.
But have you ever tried it though?
No.
You should give it a shot.
Maybe.
It's pretty good, but not too much. Just like a wee little bit.
Okay.
If you ever, also fun tip, if you ever over butter your popcorn, put just a little bit of Parmesan cheese on there and then shake it around. It absorbs up that extra butter. So it's not too like soggy with butter. A little heavy episode on popcorn this week.
No kidding.
I'm just hungry. I'm super hungry. Haven't eaten yet.
Oh, I figured you probably would have already eaten.
No, I was going to, but I didn't have time. I'm slammed with stuff right now, and I was working till I left home.
Oh, okay. We got delayed tonight, listeners. So we're putting in the long hours, even though it's still earlier than what we normally do. This is my first weekend off.
Yeah.
Like truly off without a vacation day in 5 years.
Are you even going to OCC this weekend?
No.
You're just going to sleep in on Sunday?
No, we're going to go check out church up in Canton. But yeah, so this being Thursday night is usually rehearsal night, but your fiance,
Me, fiance.
yeah, is leading this weekend. So she's
My future wife.
she's handling it, and I am not even thinking about it until just now.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were going to record this at 6:30, got home, and the power went out for some reason. It didn't even like storm up here.
It stormed. It didn't really storm, but there was rain and thunder over by my place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It stormed at work.
Okay.
It was weird. Actually, we have a big garage door, big bay door, and right inside of it is the rows of the raw wood material that we get in. And I was a good, 50 feet or plus from that door, and it started raining, and I could feel the water blowing in.
The mist.
Yeah, I was like, I probably shouldn't let this wood get all soaked. So I had to close the door. Then it got super steamy in the shop.
Yeah.
Because then it stopped raining, but the door was still closed. Anyway, I don't know why I'm saying this. But it stormed at work, but not here. That's why I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a good segue, but obviously power came back on because we were recording.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good segue because I wanted to talk about how your first week went. We didn't talk about that on last week's episode.
Corey hogged everything.
Freaking Corey talking about being homeschooled and whatnot.
Stole my thunder.
But how was your first week and now almost your full second week because it's Thursday?
Yeah. First week, it was good. Like, it was just like that overwhelming, like, mental feeling of like trying to remember everything. And like, I got to a point this week, I was actually thinking about it today. It's nice to finally be at a spot where I know how to keep myself busy. If the person training me is not right with me, like this whole week, actually, I haven't really seen my boss. Like, he's been around, but like the first week he was with me, showing me like where to put everything. Cause going into it, nothing made sense.
Yeah.
Like, I basically told myself I was going to focus on learning one part of it, like at a time. And so the first thing I was trying to remember is how they stored all of the wood that came in. And so like there's 8-foot bunks of raw lumber. So there's 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 foot long of white oak, red oak, poplar, cherry, mahogany. Like,
surprises me that you're not using like lower quality like pine. Like when I was at P. Graham Dunn, we used primarily pine. We did not use, I don't think, anything else besides MDF, which is like a particle board.
We're fancy?
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
You guys, but you're not like mass distributing stuff, right?
No,
it's more like specialty.
Yeah,
it's not exactly made to order, but it's in between.
Yeah, kind of. And they actually did, I found this out yesterday, they used to do pine.
Okay.
But we have a whole shop, like filtration system that like there's like hardly any sawdust anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is impressive because we're constantly just cutting wood. But the pine sap would clog everything.
Yeah.
And so they only had one customer who used it, and so they said we're not doing it anymore. So that's why there's no pine.
Gotcha.
But so I tried to focus just on learning how everything went, like got stored, because there's still a whole section of like moving finished, like this line finished something, but it goes over to this line, not to the finished area, like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
For the first week, I was like, I'm not even going to focus on it. I'm just going to ask where it goes, and I will take it there.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so now I feel like I have a pretty good feeling of like the setup of where things are stored.
Yeah.
And so this week, like I just kind of observed what I was pulling off of things and where they were telling me to put it, and everything. Like I still don't have a full grasp on it, but things started to make a lot more sense.
Yeah. It's coming together a little
Yeah. Like, okay, now I understand why this person is doing this. And
so do you find yourself on a tow motor most moments?
yeah, I mean, it depends. For the most part, yeah. Part of what I'm doing right now is, so for the last 4 months, no one has been in my job. It's just been whoever needed something would hop on, go get it. And then, so everything is just a wreck in terms of like being stored correctly. And so, like today I was working on rearranging the warehouse. And, so yeah, I was basically on tow motor all day, which is fine. Like, it's kind of fun because it's like a puzzle. I was telling Allie, like, I feel like
it's like big boy Tetris.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. But like, I have to think about it right now, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like it makes the day go quicker. And, I feel like she actually said the other night, we weren't even talking about like this season that we're in. She just stopped and was like, are you putting on a show or feel like have to overcompensate for like feeling better and happier? I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, just like last week, she was talking about this last week. She's like, you just like, you get home from work and after the first 2 days, because I was mentally exhausted the first 2 days.
Yeah.
She was like, you're happy, like I don't feel like you're stressed. She was like, I'm just like, I want to make sure like you're actually feeling that and you don't feel like because we've talked about this, like wanting to get to this point that you feel like you are like, for her sake, I'm putting that show on. And honestly, that wasn't even in my head. Like, I've just, and she's true. When she said it, I got to thinking about it. I was like, I am like significantly less stressed. We had like, as a couple, last week was probably the best week we've had, at least married. And like, not that I wasn't happy, but I don't know, I just feel mentally clearer.
I think stress is just a huge thing.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I don't think that most people downplay it or don't realize the effect that it has. But I feel like when you are going through immense amounts of stress, you're like, oh, I'm fine. I can do this. I can manage this. And if I can just get through this, then I'll be better. But if you're in a situation like your last job where that stress never really lets up, it just kind of comes in waves because there's always something that comes after the next thing, that you'll always kind of be anticipating that stress, even in those moments where you're not stressed. And that makes you just perpetually stressed.
Exactly. That, how you explain that hits it perfectly on the head. Because I was telling her, like, I felt like even though, like, I had Friday off, which was cool.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought.
Stress and the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, but like, she was saying how, like I mentioned, hey, let's go do this, or let's do that. Mm-hmm. Where before I would get home and like I just wanted to be home. I didn't want to do anything, and I think part of that was because I felt like come the weekend, even though I was off Friday, mm-hmm. It didn't feel like I had a weekend.
Yeah,
because
Saturday was your Sunday.
Right, basically, yeah. And like Allie's not off Friday, so I mean, I do my own thing. Mm-hmm. And so during the week, I felt like now was my time to just be home. I can do my own thing. Mm-hmm. And so I would stay up super late, playing, video games or watching Netflix, and mm-hmm. Allie go to bed. And so like that just kind of played into that whole like we had time together, but it wasn't quality.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like the time we have together, one, our schedules are the same. Mm-hmm. Her schedule actually got moved. I work 7 to 3:30. She now works 7:30 to 4:30.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and so like I'm home for probably 45 minutes or so before she gets home. Mm. And so it's really nice. And so I think for this season, I was telling Allie, like, the job I just took is not my long-term goal. Mm-hmm. But coming from the style of work that I came from, this is like the perfect schedule.
Yeah.
And like just pace, like the play, like we get our work done and like we work hard, but like no one's gonna yell at you if I took a second to reply to my wife on my phone.
Yeah.
In the middle, like while I'm working. Yeah. Like obviously not while I'm driving the forklift, but
sure.
Yeah. Guys listen to music. Like no one's gonna get fired up about anything. Mm-hmm. It's like this week, the last 2 weeks, I felt like I could breathe.
Yeah.
And I'm sure part of that, like why I felt the opposite in my last job, I mean, was on me and how I managed it. Mm. And really, I mean, marriage changed a lot. Worship ministry was never my not my full-time, my long-term goal either.
Yeah.
Like that totally fell in my lap.
Right.
And I don't know if we've really gone into detail on the podcast or not, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people.
Right.
But coming out of high school, I went to college and I came home, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I started working at Dometic, went to college here and there. But I remember
what Dometic did to you too. You were miserable while working that job.
Yeah. Part of that too was I was also working at a church.
That's right.
Yeah. So like it was just 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then I literally I worked Saturdays. And so it was 7 days a week I had something. I was working.
Yeah. And
Dometic too was just not a good work environment culture. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so coming out of college and went to Dometic and then worship ministry, this position really fell in my lap. I was only supposed to be temporary.
Yeah. And
then
we were drumming, or I was drumming on the worship team at Ripley. You were playing bass and you left to go do the part-time thing, temporary at OCC.
It's only supposed to be 6 months.
Yeah. And then after that 6 months ended, or coming up on that 6 months ending, you told me, yeah, they offered me more or asked me to do longer and I'm going to do it. It's like, no,
yeah,
come back to Ripley so we can play on the worship team together again.
Yeah.
Because I was really bummed that you had abandoned me.
At what point did you move to Pittsburgh then?
I forget where it was in your timeline.
Because like there was a period, not that like we super lost touch, but like when you were in Pittsburgh, like
it was I think we remained in touch up till when I moved to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Actually, it might have been a little bit before that because I went to the recording workshop. I'm repping their t-shirt right now.
Pointed to his t-shirt as he said that.
I went to the recording workshop, so it was like a 7-week audio production school, and like I don't think I talked to you. If we texted, we texted briefly while I was down there.
Yeah,
but then I was home from that and started job hunting. And then I think maybe 1 or 2 months after that, I was moving to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then in Pittsburgh, we didn't talk much. I didn't really know what was going on in your life.
Yeah, it was
too heavily. Like we met up for camp every year, and then we played that one retreat together.
It was the retreat that I remember. Like that in my head is when like we kind of reconnected, if there was like a reconnection.
Okay.
Because you had your long hair.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was like,
shoulders.
Man, I don't know who this guy is. But that's what it kind of felt like. I mean, once we started talking, it was
Did
like
you feel the
right
need to learn who that guy was again, or be like, I need to kind of restoke that fire a little bit?
Like,
was there like an effort on your part of like, I need to like try to make some moves to like form that connection back, because I can feel it kind of tearing?
I think so. It's very blurry in the whole timeline's very blurry.
Same. I'm horrible with timelines.
Yeah. Because I remember, I think Jeremiah had asked about leading worship, asked me to lead worship at camp. That summer, and then we played that retreat.
That's right.
Late spring.
That's right.
And it was there when we just kind of threw it out to you, because we had no idea if you would even be interested in coming back to play for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. And so I think that's why in my head, that's when it kind of like we reconnected.
Yeah. I remember at that retreat that I had known that you had a girlfriend, but apparently that was like right before you proposed to her, or somewhere around there. When did you propose?
December 2015.
Okay.
2016.
So that would have been the summer or the spring, I guess, before you proposed. Either way, because she wasn't your fiance yet.
When did you move back? What year?
16.
Okay.
Beginning of 17? Yeah, beginning of 17.
Okay.
End of 16.
That's right.
Yeah. End of 16 is when I moved back, like December of 16.
Because I think what also is confusing to me is the amount of years we played at camp.
Yeah. It's been a few.
Specifically for Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah. 3 or 4.
Because how many years were we on the campside?
I don't know.
I have no idea if anyone's going to be interested in this.
Yeah, I'm thinking let's veer from this.
Yeah.
But we need like a whiteboard to figure out this time.
We do.
With like some strings to pictures and stuff.
Moral of the story, at one point, Donnie and Jordyn drifted
apart. But I remember at that retreat that, because we had been texting like a little bit, and like, I don't even think I heard it from you. I think I heard it from somebody else that you had a girlfriend. And then she walked up to you, and I'd never seen her before in my life.
That's right.
And you guys kissed. And I was like, oh man, this is like a lot more serious than I thought it was. And I was like, his life is like moving on in a way that I can't keep up with. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was that profound.
I remember having that thought. I remember seeing that happen. I can see it in my mind. And I remember thinking that thought. And it was sad, but I don't think there was anything at the time that I could really do about it.
Yeah.
Because like, you're horrible at texting.
I am.
And you can't really maintain a friend relationship over texting.
Right.
So I was like, there's really nothing at this point that I can do. And I was sad about it. And it was like, I'm not saying goodbye to it yet, but I don't know if it'll get like back to where it was, or if it'll get better than this, you know? So that was kind of a bittersweet moment for me, because I was happy for you.
Yeah.
Like you're moving on and like your life was developing, but I was also sad that it was like our lives were just kind of splitting, you know?
Well, that's what's funny is like, it's kind of like milestones in our friendship. And really we're going to be coming up on another one of those.
10?
Well, no, sorry. I meant when you get married.
Oh yeah.
Because not only then will the whole marriage relationship take precedent, but you like, there's no telling where you guys actually end up.
Right.
And so like how all of that is going to play out, you know? I think too, and the older I get, I've noticed that like I think about like life in terms like how long life is. Mm-hmm. I think about it a lot and how short it is
Right.
how I should have said it.
Right. It feels long, but really it's
and like
just a blink.
I was thinking about this month. We've been back 10 years already. And like how, you know, my parents 10 years younger, like in a time frame that feels like it, like snap my fingers, it was done.
Yeah.
Like have already aged 10 years.
Yeah.
And then like how much longer they'll be around and like even my own life. I don't know. It's one of those things that I think it's when it comes with age, like as you get older, you think about these things more, but I'm still learning how to process that healthy, or healthy way to process that. Cause like I can't dwell on it too much,
right?
Or else I'll slip into a bad area.
Yeah. Get sad.
Yeah.
So I think it's like Emily said, I think she said it on the podcast or she said it later because we were having a similar conversation about like life and how quickly it moves and how it seems to be going faster and faster. She was like, well, when you're a baby, like when you're 2 years old, a year is half your life.
Right.
So it seems like an eternity. And like when you're 10 and 11 and 12, years and like seasons seem super long. Remember how long summer used to last?
Oh yeah. Or Christmas break.
Yeah. And now it's like it's over.
Yeah.
Like we're already into July now. Mm-hmm. But when you get old, like when you're 80 years old, a year is nothing, you know? So it just keeps going. You can't put brakes on it.
Nope.
It just keeps speeding up. It's just a runaway train and you can't do anything about it. You're just on it. You're just on that train that is careening towards death.
Yeah.
But in like I think I view that as like a positive thing. Like I don't think that death is a final thing.
Right.
I think that there's something greater beyond. But at the same time, I think, and I was just listening to a podcast on the way in where they were talking about being present and being in the moment and just being here. Like right now, I'm kind of in my mind actively trying to be with you in this room doing a stupid podcast and just enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I had like a crisis at work today. I screwed up and did something wrong and they needed me to resend files. And whenever I do anything wrong like that, I think, oh no, I'm fired. I'm done. That's it. And I dread looking at emails and getting emails because every email I get, I'm like, they're mad.
This is it.
They're mad at me. I don't know why. That's just something that's broken within inside of me.
Yeah.
That every time I see an email, I just dread opening it because I think they're mad at me. But I was worried about it on the way here. And then listening to that podcast, they're just like, just be in the moment. And remind yourself that life is so short and so fleeting. This could be the last time that we podcast. I really, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but one of us could die. Yeah. Our brains could just explode. Our hearts could just explode and we could be dead in 10 minutes. This could be the last time that we sit down and look each other in the eye and have a conversation. And when you start viewing life like that, like these little moments, like this moment that we're having right now is so much more precious and so much more valuable than if I'm sitting here and we're doing this, but I'm also thinking about, oh no, like work and emails and stuff. And my mind is here, but also elsewhere. And that just life, it's not fair to yourself and it's not fair to those around you, those that you have relationships with, to be not here, not having a conversation, not being 100% present. Like when you're doing that thing with your wife, when you're watching a movie in your bedroom, be 100% in that moment.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah. That's my spiel. That's all just regurgitation from a podcast that I listen to. But
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's sound advice.
Oh, for sure.
But I'm glad your job's going well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet because I saw you for practice and then on Sunday last week. And then this is my first time seeing you since then. So I haven't noticed any happiness emulating from you.
Right.
But at practice last Thursday, you were wearing flip-flops and shorts, and you just look retired, like an old retired man. Just like, I'm done.
That's right. Walked into the office, Corey was just like, kind of looked at me weird. I was like, I don't work here.
The big thing for me was I've never seen you in those flip-flops before, and they're the same like color almost as your skin. So it looked like you were just walking around barefoot. So I walked in and I was like, really? Bold choice.
Yeah. I will say, like, last weekend, so it was weird because the 16th was my last full-time Sunday.
Right.
But I hadn't led worship in 3 weeks, I think, at that point, because we were wanting to go ahead and transition.
Yeah.
And so the 16th was my last full-time Sunday. They announced it, but I was on stage playing. But I led the week after as my part-time position started.
I'm sure people would be like, so do you change his mind? Right. Fired?
But I will say, last weekend was probably the most fun I've had leading worship since probably I was last part-time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think part of it was just like...
There wasn't any pressure on it?
Well, that and like I was able to kind of what you would just say, like I was just in the moment.
Yeah. Because
I'm not thinking about the community outreach stuff I have to do this week. Like, I was just there to lead worship. I was there to be with the team. Yeah. Like, I don't know. It was just good.
I'm super stoked that you got that. I've been really trying to just enjoy moments playing with you on stage because, like, if me and Emily move away, that ends.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to really absorb all those moments that I can.
Yeah.
Because they're a gift and they might be gone soon. That's sad.
And really, I mean, I thought, like, after you'd moved to Pittsburgh, like, I thought that was, like, we were done. Like, except for maybe camp every summer. Like, I didn't think that the last year or so was going to happen again. Right. With you playing on the same team that I'm in.
You were talking earlier, too. You were saying that, was it me, or no, that one day at camp, when we did the, not at camp, but the retreat, where I noticed that thing, and then you said you noticed kind of a split happening as well. But you thought it was like a rekindling moment where we kind of connected back together.
That moment, yeah.
I think it was after I had moved back. Remember what you came to my house? I was living in Dalton, and you came to my house, and we just sat down at my table and talked for probably 2 hours. But in that conversation, like, there was maybe like just a little bit of spinning wheels for maybe 5 minutes of like trying to gain traction with each other again. And then it just kicked. Yeah. And it was like we hadn't been separated for 2 years. Like, it really, like, I've had that with other friends as well, but not as profound, where like I've noticed it happening in the moment as hard as that in that moment. Yeah. Where we just like, boom, we're back in it. Yeah. We haven't missed a beat.
I do remember that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciated that moving back.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, a true testament of friendship is when you can not have any awkward conversation after not seeing each other for a while.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, we had, obviously, camp kind of, I think, was a primer for all of that. Like, because I think, was that the first year or the second year of camp?
Second.
So you did a year of camp, went back to Pittsburgh for a while. And then after camp, that fall, winter, is when you moved back.
Yep.
And so...
I was actually out there for exactly 2 years. I moved in December, and then I came back in, I think, December or January.
Yeah, I think it was
January
December.
1st.
Yeah. So before... Because kind of what had happened, me and another guy came out to Pittsburgh, and like, we recorded a few songs, which was actually really fun.
Yeah.
We had to pull the overnighter because that was when the studio was closed, and so that's when we were allowed to be in there.
We would go in there from like what, like 9 o'clock to like 2 a.m.
As long as we could do it, I think.
That was my life when I lived in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then I would do like till 3 or 4 a.m, sometimes 6 a.m. is when I would be in there recording. And then I'd be asleep. And then at 8 a.m., I would get a call from my boss saying, "Hey, I'm running late, but there's a group there. Can you go let them in?" I'm like, I just fell asleep, but okay.
So when we came out, because coming out of camp, we wanted to get some stuff together, whatever. Had you already thought about moving back by that point?
I think at that point we were, because I think at that point I was realizing that engineering in Pittsburgh wouldn't really work out. It wasn't working out for me. I didn't see it working out financially, just Pittsburgh being the town that it is, and engineering, audio engineering, specifically music and bands, being in the state that it's in industry-wise, when anybody can go out and get recording software for free and record an album in their room. Why would you go spend $10,000 to record your album at a studio?
Right.
But so I was kicking it around in my mind, and then being at camp, me and that other guy started talking. I was like, man, I just really love playing worship music. And then we talked about forming a band. Like that was like the main reason, probably like the main determining factor, like nail in the coffin to get me to move back, was you guys were here and there was the talk of a worship band. And then obviously that fell through. But I'm happy it did. I'm happy it worked out. I'm happy that everything played out like it did, because it's where I'm at now.
Right.
And I'm pretty darn happy with where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a job now that is still doing engineering to some extent, and mixing and editing. And I really love the editing, and everything I do is pretty edit heavy. And I've always enjoyed editing in recording software, probably more than anything else. So that's my job now. I get paid to do that, and I get paid a heck of a lot better than I was making in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm happy that things worked like they did, and things kind of fell through, because it put us where we are now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's always kind of been my philosophy, is try to be as happy and content with yourself as you can. And then you'll have like no regrets of like, oh, I wish I would have done this. But if you would have done that, you wouldn't have been the person that you are now.
Right. That's something, especially in this last like season and now, is I've thought about a whole lot, is because, I felt the move that I just made, especially early last week, like I was struggling with feeling like I've taken a step back.
Lateral move.
Yeah. Because I'd spent 5 years doing this, even though I knew it's not something that I wanted to do. It felt like an adult job, kind of. And so then I was like, why? I in my head, this was all at work. I have a lot of time to think at work.
Yeah.
I was like, why did I even, decide to stay past the 6-month commitment I made? And, at first, I could have spent all this time doing something else that I would have been so far ahead of. It's like, well, I wouldn't be married right now.
Yeah, you wouldn't have met your wife.
Yeah. And if that was the one thing that the last 5 years, that's why I was the last 5 years where I was. Okay, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how everything, good and bad, I'm not one who thinks that everything happens for a reason. But being a Christian, we know God works things together for good. And so even though I've probably made bad decisions that have maybe caused now where I feel like I've taken a step back, even though I don't think I have now, but all of those decisions that led me to this point have been worked together perfectly for good.
Yeah.
Like moving back here in high school when I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Ended up getting the ability to lead worship at Ripley once a month. I was able to kind of hone that a little bit. Ended up being asked to just do interim till they found somebody. Ended up coming on full time. Ended up meeting my wife.
Yeah.
And then now, like, I don't know what's next. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to do.
Right.
But I'm looking at this move now, like, it's okay. Like, I don't have to have the long-term next thing figured out right now. And that's not what I need to go to. One, it would have been almost impossible. Just the way that I had to leave my last job. Like I was telling Allie, like, as soon as that full-time commitment was done, I told her, I said, that will be the hardest season of leaving a job that I'll ever have to go through.
Yeah.
One, so this was announced in...
Was it like a month ago?
Was it May? I had talked to my boss in February and told him that I was going to leave.
I had known about it.
Yeah.
I think I was like, besides Allie and your parents and stuff.
Yeah.
Like anybody from church.
Yeah. And so I had to keep it super secret. But also my boss knew that I was going to be leaving, but I still had to work and like still had to maintain this appearance. Like, yeah, I'm here for the long haul. But then even once we got to the point of, okay, now we can talk about it, it had to be so public, like incredibly public.
Multiple announcements.
I had to write a letter.
You wrote a letter
to the congregation.
I never got one, by the way.
You did?
So, yeah.
I can send it to you.
Grudge.
Grudge.
Actually,
Actually, there's been a pile sitting in the music room at church.
you never made it public.
I'm pretty sure I walked in and said, "Here's the letter if anybody wants it."
I don't think I was on that week.
Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, so like, and then people, of course, people come up and they meant super well, and that's how I tried to take it. But it's like, so yeah, why are you leaving? Well, what do you want to go in? It's like,
yeah. It almost, I feel like when you leave a church, it's like the congregation. I think even if they don't take it that way, I think if you're the one leaving in your head, you're thinking they feel like this is a betrayal to them.
Yeah, a little bit. And like, I will say, like, I had all positive experience. And I'm very thankful for that. Cause like most people knew, like, so my sister-in-law actually was my worship assistant. So she kind of worked for me. And when I told her, she was surprised, but she was like, I mean, I knew this wasn't a long-term thing for you, is what she said. And that was kind of across the board. Like, yeah, we knew, but, we're still sad or whatever.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like, I'm kind of a private person. And so I hated the feeling of like, I have to explain this, and like and I say that in general, like people on my team and stuff, like I wanted the opportunity to explain that because like, those are the people who like I really had a relationship with. Yeah. And that's what's hard too, is when you're working at a church, people know you, but I don't know them. Everyone knows me.
Right.
And so like, they all feel like probably we're closer than we are. And it's just, I mean, I probably would do the same thing. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
But that's also what kind of made it hard. Just like people who haven't talked to me in 2 years now want to know, well, why are you leaving?
Yeah.
And
I feel like whenever you leave a position within a church, it's like, so what's wrong?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because not very many people get to leave a church on a good note.
Right.
Which I did. And I'm thankful for that. But that was another thing. Like, they're kind of like skirting, like,
yeah.
So is there like a moral failure or something? It's like, no, I just don't want to do this. And so that's good too. And to be honest, like, burnout was a big thing and still is. And that's why, like, over the summer, I'm only leading like once a month.
Yeah.
I tried to pull back a lot, and like, I'm really thankful, like Emily and Savannah are leading.
Yeah.
Because, like, I was talking to some of our friends on fire the other night, and just, like, I realized it's kind of what I alluded to earlier. When I'm leading worship and I'm not thinking about leading worship, I'm thinking about the next meeting that I'm going to have to explain something in.
Right.
Or what do I need to do to top what we're doing right now?
Right.
Like, I was just tired.
Yeah.
Like, I was just so tired of, like, I don't know. It's hard. And some people are built for that.
Yeah.
I don't think I am. Like, I don't need, like, big extravagant church stuff, if that makes sense, in order for me to, like, I need real and authentic.
Yeah.
If it comes in the form of really good production, as long as it, like, because you can tell, like, you can go to a mega church who have great production, but no realness, no heart.
They're just kind of phoning it in.
Yeah. And
it's their job.
It's hard to explain what it is, but you know it when you see it.
Yep.
And the flip side, like, some of the best worship I've had is a guy playing wrong chords around a campfire.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's so real in that moment.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is important to me.
Yeah.
And not that what we did, I mean, it's hard to judge people's hearts. But it got to the point where I knew my heart, and my heart wasn't real.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about everything else.
Yeah. Because
And
it was your job.
yeah, and it was my job. And I think that feeling kind of started to come back of that realness this past weekend. When, as stupid as it sounds, just a week later, it's not my job anymore. But I get to do what I think I've been blessed with. And I think if I don't pursue that, that's probably wrong on me. And so, like, wherever we end up, we get to do it. I'm excited to kind of take a little bit of a break over, next few months or whatever. But I don't know. I've talked a lot. Sorry.
It's been fantastic. I think that I've known most of that stuff that has been going on since February. And you've been having those thoughts, and you've been sharing those thoughts with me, like, as they come up and as you're living through them this past few months, like half a year, pretty much. So, and we've multiple times, like, skirted around these topics on the podcast because they've been going on, but you can't say anything about them.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, like, frustration, and it's just when you have something that's going on in your life and it's good to talk about it, but you can't talk about it, that sucks.
And that's what all of what you just said, plus you add on that burned out feeling, makes the littlest thing 100 times worse. The littlest tension at work that any other day, if I was in a healthy spot, would have been nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Talked about it, figured it out, moved on.
Right.
And I think too, what hurt is, like with Allie. So I would come home being in that mindset, that space where something really frustrated me that day, which really is probably a small thing. And, like, she's my wife, and so I'm going to talk about it with her. So I talk about it with her, and, like, she sees it as, like, either I'm hurt or something bad has happened to me, and so she's frustrated with whatever that happened, whether it be a person or whatever. And in the moment, it's really big for me, so we talk about it. And then the next day, it blows over. It's not a big deal for me. Like, either I've resolved it with a person or whatever at work.
Yeah.
But to her, it's just compounding. And so, like, the whole flip side of that too for her was, it was really hard. And, like, she said, like, she knew my job when we got married. But it was also something we started talking about before we even got married was, is this going to be a long-term thing for us?
Yeah.
And so that's what it's hard too, because for some people, like, it just a month ago, they heard this for the first time and it feels like, well, what the heck just happened? It's like, nah, this has been
ongoing
3 years, really.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So like I said, I mean, I recognize the spot I'm in, just feeling burned out, just with, not with church, just with the job of it. But even in now a week and a half, like I'm already starting to feel that. Like I told Allie, like I felt like my faith is healthier even just in 2 weeks. Even I haven't really done anything different necessarily, but like on my way to work, there's a little town I drive through, and in my head, I know, like when I hit that town, like I just say a prayer that morning, like pray for Allie, pray for the day, like whatever. Yeah. I just like I listen to a podcast, but I pause it, pray as I'm driving, and then when I'm done, turn back on, whatever. Little things like that. That when it's your job and your faith is so intertwined with your job, for me, it played a really bad mental game. So yeah, I think that also has led to just like the clear feeling these last 2 weeks. But
I think for me, when there is something job related or that feels job related, I'm trying to come up with this thought as I talk, but I had like the fragments of it just a second ago. But when there's something that I have to do that is not important to the main objective of my job, I really hate doing that. And I really don't want to do it if somebody tells me to do it. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So in that way, I think if I was in your position and I kind of felt that pressure of like, you know, have you like spent time with God today? Have you done this? When there's all that stuff, just that, all that side pressure, like, yes, that is related to your job as a worship minister, like your connection with God and where you're at in your walk. But if I were to be in that position and be constantly feeling that side pressure, when stuff becomes too overwhelming for me, I just shove it to the side. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
Out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. It's causing me stress, so let's just not deal with it. And then I won't be stressed anymore.
Right.
And then that just leads to eventually just a volcano of stress.
Yeah.
But
no, we're kind of the same person in that. So that's exactly what happened. And to like in that position, who are you going to talk to that about?
Right.
Like, luckily, I was in an odd spot for most ministers where you and I have been friends since before this, since before I was a minister. And so, like, I always had that to talk to you about, or Allie, but even her, like, she's only known me as a minister.
Yeah.
And so, so just having that, like, and that's what, for people listening, the biggest thing you can do for like your pastors or ministers is don't assume that someone else is asking how they're doing truly. Don't assume that like they have that person, because most of the time they don't.
Yeah.
And like you see it, like the past few years, there's been a rise in pastors committing suicide because it's super lonely, because we don't feel like we're ever really know you. Like, because if you met me as a pastor for the first time, again, one of the first things you ask somebody, what do you do?
Right.
I'm a pastor. Oh, and we can see it change like that. And then now it's, well, I'm never going to really know who they are.
Right.
Because they're always going to be watching what they do around me. They're always going to be watching what they say or whatever as some sign of respect or whatever. But really, I just want to know somebody. Right. And I want to know that there's like that safe space to talk about something. And that's another thing too, is be somebody who don't burn your pastor. And by that, I mean, like, if they confide in you, as long as it's like nothing where like you should probably tell somebody because of the position they're in, but be that safe space for them. Like, because it's super lonely. Even, I don't think he's going to care that I say this part, but like with Corey, he moved here as the new pastor in town, didn't know anybody. And so, for him especially, like I feel awful because it's like, I'm sure it's hard for him to find those people. So if you're in a spot to be that person for a pastor, do it. Yeah. But just be real.
Yeah. One thing I really love about Corey, speaking of Corey, is you're talking about like asking, like, how are you doing? And like meaning it. Like, tell me like the dirt.
Right.
Show me that sort of nasty stuff that you can't show other people. He has always been that type of person to be like, so how are you doing with this aspect of your life? How are you doing with this aspect of your life?
Be specific.
And he'll ask you super specifically, like about a very specific thing. And ever since I started hanging out with him, like I noticed like my desire to do that with my other friends and be like, you know what, you can say like, so how are you doing? And you can dive into some pretty deep discussions just from that. But if you really pinpoint like an aspect of their life, like how are you doing with this? How are you doing with this? Then you really dive into some deep stuff then. Yeah. And I feel like as friends and being supportive friends and being what a true friend is, you need to have those conversations that aren't pretty and aren't fun and just kind of suck sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've learned that from, and we're pointing to an empty chair where he sat last time. But I learned that from, or I noticed a desire to do that more since I've started hanging out with Corey. Yeah. So I'm appreciative of that in that regard. Also, really quick sidebar to go back to pastors not being able to talk about stuff and like something happens and you're like, oh my goodness, where did this come from? This is a complete total sidebar and maybe it's for another podcast, but I feel like sexual situations and like sexual situations, especially within the church, especially with ministers, are not handled well by the church. I feel like sex in general is not handled well by the church.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't want to say old school.
I think what it is it lends to an unhealthy fear of it.
Yeah. I think it's like sexual sin is the worst sin you can have as a Christian if you go into a church. That's the mentality.
And then they expect as soon as you get married to have a great sex life.
Right. Right.
You've been telling me all this time.
No sex, no sex, no sex. Sex is bad. Sex is bad. Don't have sex. And now it's okay all of a sudden. Yeah. I feel that like that mentality, just that alone can lead to some really unhealthy things within your marriage.
Oh, for sure.
Just with how you approach sex. We might have to edit this part out of the Back Row podcast, but we'll put it on our own.
Okay.
But when sex is something that's viewed as evil and immoral for your entire life, and then all of a sudden, oh, you can have it, no wonder stuff is happening.
Yeah.
No wonder there's unhealthy habits is a weak word. No wonder dudes are turning to porn and girls. I think it's like 80% in women. It's higher than you think it would be.
Right.
But, and I'm in no way accrediting pedophilia, but I feel like we see that so much, especially within the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah, because they're not allowed to be married.
Right. Or have sex at all. So they take a vow of celibacy, and then they just have all this pent-up sexual aggression. Is that the right word? Desire. And who are they around all the time?
Right.
And it just comes out in that way, and then we wonder why. So I don't know.
I think there's a way to teach about sex that has not been taught to where you can understand how important it is to have that in a marriage setting and the role that it plays. So you can talk about that without then just thinking, oh goodness, now these kids are just going to go have sex with whoever. One, because like for me personally, I've shared this on stage at Orville before, but like, especially in high school, like with struggling with porn part of it was my curiosity is what started it. Mm-hmm. Because like I just heard slight like fragments of what sex was. And I knew, well, if I just look online, I can kind of fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what I ended up learning about sex was from porn originally, which is the worst thing you can do. Just the absolute worst thing. Because like I couldn't ask that. Like sex was bad.
Right.
But there's also this desire for it that just feels natural because it is.
Right.
And for someone to sit down and teach, no, that desire that you have is good. God gave you that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be beautiful with the wife, because like it's something so intimate that like, I mean, I somehow stayed a virgin until I was married. And so now it's like, man, I'm so glad I waited to have that as my marriage, like the only in marriage, because it makes our relationship so much stronger.
Right.
It's not built around that. It just adds to it. And like, if there was a way, I don't have all the answers, but to teach that like, yeah, someday it's going to be freaking awesome. And whatever porn shows you is totally a lie.
Right.
So just don't even worry about that. I mean, even though there's still going to be desire or whatever, but I don't know. I'm on a tangent now.
No, that's fine. I think that it's just something that we're so afraid to talk about for whatever reason. It's just that taboo. It's always been taboo. And I don't know if it will ever not be taboo to talk about that sort of stuff.
Right.
Within the church, at least.
Yeah.
I don't see it changing anytime soon. But with porn especially, because I feel like you just have all this influx of all this wrong information, but you're afraid to talk about it because you'll get into trouble and it's bad. But how do you rectify that wrong information if you're not talking about it and talking through what you're seeing or what you have seen with somebody?
Yeah.
You know, somebody say that, oh, that's completely unhealthy behavior. That's not natural.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that is another reason why we have a lot of stuff like the pedophilia within the clergy. And I'm narrowing it down to the clergy, but it's not just that. I just feel like you see, that's the joke, right?
Yeah.
That's the meme.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I feel like this is a thought I'm just having. I might completely disagree with it later on down the line, but I'm going to say it now because it came into my head. I think with Christians specifically, sex is the worst thing you can do. Shouldn't have sex at all. That's like the number one, premarital sex. Sex outside of marriage is the worst thing you can do. That's number one. But below that is porn. I think porn is below that. So that's the loophole there, is I'm not committing the worst sin.
True.
But I'm still super curious and I have all these desires. So this is just what I'm going to, because it's not the worst. You know? So from that, you have all those bad... I'm forming this thought. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
We're going back to like the first few podcasts where we'd have long pauses while we thought. But you have all this wrong information that you've learned through porn, and now you have no one to tell you that that's not healthy and that's not right. And that's where that thought ends. But I feel like you see, that's why, I think that is the root of why that trickles down into the church and why you see it coming out in different ways within the church. Yeah. Like, I don't know, worship ministers or something texting underage girls, or something over here happens or something over here happens. I think that stems from that location and not having somebody to talk with that about in a very real way. Because if you say, hey, I'm struggling with porn to somebody in the church, it's like, oh, let's stop that right now and let's rectify that and let's pray and let's let's end it, but that you don't really talk about it. You just talk about ending it. Yeah. You don't talk about
the root of it,
and how to, not remedy. I don't know. I'm sorry, listeners. You don't talk about what you've experienced in that, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
And how I'm looking at it as you're talking is, for me, my story was, you know, I kept it a secret until one year at camp. My youth group, I have this journal somewhere. So I was journaling. I did that a lot in high school. Every year at camp for however many years, like it was always, that was the thing that I brought, was like, I'm struggling with porn. But I never said anything because, again, no one was talking about it, and I was going to bring it up because you're kind of outcast at that point. That's another thing, too, is whenever someone admits to it, the first thing we do is remove them from any, it's a huge thing.
I feel like you want to kind of excommunicate yourself from that person as well, because you don't want them to expose you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say if anybody told me they have not seen porn, I would say you're lying to me. Everybody
just surf porn. Twitter and you'll find it.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, sorry. Back to,
that's my bad.
No, it's okay. It was at camp. Oh, okay. Now I'm back on track. So I was journaling about it, and I remember this guy, one of the adults, just walked into our cabin and just out of nowhere was like, "Hey, so any of you guys struggle with porn?" And I was writing like, "God, you know, open somehow that I can talk to somebody about this." And then like it's happening. And then like my thoughts as this guy was talking, and like I finally getting up the courage to like go outside and talk to him. And but the kind of breakthrough didn't happen there. It was the step in like telling somebody, but it wasn't like a year or two later when I was talking to my small group leader, and it was going not like into graphic detail, but like talking about the actual stuff I'm struggling with was freeing for me. Because it's one thing like, yeah, you know, I cuss or whatever, you know, whatever it is. But yeah, I struggle with porn. Yeah, a little bit. Well, no, like, you know, these, like, I think this is what triggers something. Because there's plenty of studies now where it affects your brain just like a drug.
Is it serotonin that it releases?
Maybe. Carol fact check us.
Yeah.
But the brain scans of a meth addicted person, almost the same as someone who's really hardcore addicted to porn. But that fuels the need for more, need for harder stuff, for you know, just weirder and more whatever. And I think that kind of leads back to your point where you were talking about how it kind of births from something. Is then the end result is, you know, the Catholic molestation problem.
I think it eventually trickles down to where it's affecting your life outside of the internet.
Yeah. And I think it's because it's a brain thing. Like you feel that need for something harder. And then, well, now like I need to do it like in real life. It's just like a drug. Like I need the next high, but I need to be higher. Because like suddenly what I started with doesn't do it anymore.
Right.
But it's within that process, like that's when we need to be talking about it. So that way it doesn't get to that point. But for me, it was being super open and honest about it is what was freeing. And like, then there was this website called Fight the New Drug, which like is what really helped me. Cause it's still a temptation. Like,
I don't even think that's a Christian site.
No, they're like,
because I was going to make a point about that there's been a trend and I was going to say fight the new drug
Yeah.
of people that aren't even Christians that are quitting porn because you can see like the effects. Like they've done studies on the effects that porn has on your brain. Mm-hmm. And it's super negative. Like it ramps up depression and you tend to isolate yourself, which then ramps up depression again.
Yeah.
It's just a circle of badness.
Yeah, and like where different countries and states now are declaring it a public health crisis.
Yeah,
which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't remember what I was saying now, but I don't know. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode just on that, like just with my story and
my story as well.
Yeah, but.
Maybe next episode, because Back Row is actually on hiatus these next 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he said you can either send us episodes and we'll like
backlog them.
We'll play 2 a week until we're caught up, or just not send anything in. So maybe since we've gone on this tangent, and maybe next time we'll talk about it as well.
Yeah.
Because we just kind of fell into this topic.
Yeah, I don't even really know how we got
here. We could backtrack it, but it's not worth it.
Not worth it.
But
we're already at the longest we've ever.
Yeah. So high five. But maybe next episode we'll step away from it. We'll get some thoughts on it and come back to it fresh. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. My brain is shutting down.
Yeah.
I'm getting the sleeps. But yeah, fight the new drug. Check out that website.
They actually have, if you are struggling, they have a program. It's called Fortify. Mm-hmm. That basically, I think it's Fight the New Drug. It's kind of a recovery program. It's, if you're a student, it's free. If you're an adult, like they ask you to pay, so that way they can provide it for free for the students who don't have whatever. But anyway, it's super good. So
yeah,
Fight the New Drug.
Also, we tried it for a little bit between you and I, but I don't think that we were as open as we are now. I think that's why it didn't, like, we kind of quit doing it. But there's another thing called X3 Watch, which is basically just accountability software.
Yep. If
you look something up, or if you key in like any specific trigger words into any search engine anywhere, even in incognito mode, can't escape it. It alerts these people that you have as your accountability partners. So they get a notification that you've searched something like that, or you've gone to one of these sites.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for accountability software, X3 Watch, I would definitely recommend that. I think at this point it's still free.
I think there's two versions.
Yeah, I think there's like a base free version, and then there's another version that's pay.
I think the pay one will actually block the site.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get through. The other one will just track it and then tell your friends what all you looked at. So,
but yeah, X3 Watch, Fight the New Drug. There's options out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to struggle, and you shouldn't be struggling alone.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's scary to tell somebody, but boy, is it way better if you're just open about it.
Yeah.
And don't assume you're the only person who's struggling with something.
Because you're not.
Yeah. Guaranteed. That's Donnie and I at camp one year. It was, I think it was the first year.
Yeah.
It was in reference to the story with Abby D. It was that group that we were supposed to be leading, but didn't really, which probably, looking back on it just now, probably played into the results that we had with this thing that we tried, in that we split the girls and the boys.
Yeah.
And with the boys, we wanted to throw that out there. Like,
right, hey, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And they all like just stared at the ground. But it was probably because we weren't hardly ever around.
Like, who are you guys?
Yeah.
We hardly know you. Can't even remember your names, and now you're asking us, hey, you looking at porn, kids?
There's only one kid I can remember the name of, too.
Oh, yeah, we won't say it on the podcast. I'll bleep it out.
Okay.
Just in case.
Yeah, true.
I guess we can say his first name. That's fine.
So
Bobby. Bobby's fine.
And Soup Face, I don't know his name.
Yeah.
But anyway, we need to wrap this up.
Sure. This is how many, Carol, how many, I guess I'll find out, but how many hours is 81 minutes? It's like an hour and a half, maybe?
Hour and 20.
Hour and 20. Longest episode yet. Well, who's outroing? Are you kazooing?
I think it's my turn to kazoo.
All right. I was going to do it too, but never mind.
I think.
You can kazoo. Well, listeners, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. We dove into some pretty good topics, I think, today. Talked about Pudge and his new job and how leaving his old job went. Talked about porn and how you shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. That's all. That's the only two topics that I can remember right now. But we want to thank you so much for listening. If you want to contact us or just see some stupid tweets that we tweet, you can follow us at myfriendpodcast on twitter.com. If you want to write into us, you can write us into itrustyoupodcast@gmail.com. We'll even say your name anonymously. We'll tell them your name is anonymous if you would like. Beyond that, find us on Back Row Radio, on the Back Row Radio app. It's an online Christian radio station. They play some pretty dope music. It's not like K-Love. It's not like The Fish. It's way better. And our charity was closed. We failed. But $175 was raised for Compassion International. All of that is going to Compassion. We will not be running in a 5K because we did not get the money. But that's all right because we raised a little bit of money for those less fortunate, and that's always a good thing. So thank you so much for listening. We love you. You're amazing. You're my friend, and I trust you.
Just two dudes having a conversation. You're my friend and I trust you.